Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to week 4, if you can believe it. So, this is at the end of the week, we'll have had almost a full month of class. So, I'm going to keep this brief and to the point because I know that all of y'all are really busy and probably just want to get on with your work. So, I wanted to make a few comments about some of the essays that y'all read last week. One in particular, this one, my experience with literacy part 2. Which one of the things or two things I really wanted to point out to you about this particular essay that I found particularly good, and things that maybe you can experiment doing within your own paper. So, this one I loved, and a couple of things I want you to notice about it is one, it's not perfect. Like the very first sentence has a comma splice. So, right here, she combined two complete sentences with just a comma. It's okay. Like in narrative, we really want to be concentrating more on the content. We can always go back and fix the grammar, but again, because it's in your own voice, it's also perfectly okay if it has a few mistakes in there, which I know sounds counterintuitive to everything you've learned about writing so far in school, but there is a huge difference between content and mechanics. And yes, if a paper has an overwhelming amount of grammatical and mechanical errors in it, yes, it can be distracting from the flow, and those do need to be corrected. But little nitpicky things, especially in narrative, like another mistake that the student makes is usually when you have dialogue like this and you switch speakers, you're actually technically supposed to start a new paragraph. And she doesn't do it, but I'm not mad at her for it. You know, obviously she won an award making those errors, and it was okay. It really, really was. But if you are choosing to use dialogue in your papers, which I highly encourage, you don't have to, but, you know, if you can remember something said or something that you said, feel free to put it in there. And also in a narrative, it's okay to say that you don't remember saying something, or you don't remember exactly what you said, or I said something like this, you know, and kind of paraphrase what you think you said, because that's part of being human and having memories and trying to remember something that potentially happened years and years ago. Our memories aren't clear. We don't remember things exactly. Another reason why I picked this particular essay, because this girl was recovering from a traumatic brain injury and she didn't remember everything. And she was trying to relearn to read, write, even to an extent speak again. And so there are things in here that she just didn't know. And one of the things I do really love about this particular essay is that she doesn't give you everything all at once. And that's a really good hook to use. Like, what happened? Why can't you talk? You know, there's an accident, but what kind of accident was it? My brother had a traumatic brain injury, but it was a baseball injury. He played Little League, and a kid accidentally hit him in the head. It was an accident, hit him in the head with a baseball bat when he wasn't wearing a helmet. It was before the game. It's a long story, but needless to say, he had to relearn lots of things. It took 2 years for his brain to rewire. And, you know, there were just certain things he couldn't recall or say as a result of his brain injury. And it's the same thing here. So, but you're left with what kind of accident? What happened? Then you find out later it was a car accident. Then you find out later that the truck she was in had rolled 7 times and her seatbelt failed somehow. And, you know, but the point is at the beginning of the story, as she's following the action, she was not ready to tell her full story. And that's why it doesn't really come until the end. Because she keeps mentioning, I don't want to talk about it. You know, I'm not ready to talk about it. I can't get the words out. I can't get the thoughts out. And it's not until much, much later, even to the end, when she's finally able to write it out. That's when she's able to tell the story. And that's when we find out, the audience finds out what happens. And I think it's a brilliant writing strategy here. Like if she had let you know at the very beginning, hey, I was in this terrible car accident and I had to relearn to do all this stuff, then it doesn't leave us with any guessing or wondering what happened. So I think that this was really good. And so there was something else here. Hold on. That I think is really cool that she does here. So this, in the middle of this paragraph right here, if you want your audience to pay attention to a certain idea or thought that you have, or you're trying to really convey anger or frustration, you can do what she does here, which I think is really cool. So here she has a sentence, a paragraph, and she has these really short words and phrases. I don't know. When I sleep, I think maybe, but it doesn't help. Everything's all mixed up. When you want your audience to really hone in on this idea or to feel something, what you can do is you can create a paragraph that has like these compound sentences, compound complex sentences all around it, then have this series of really short sentences, or maybe even just one really short, simple sentence to make your audience focus on that. And that's what she does here, and she uses it to express her frustration. And again, I think it's just something that's done very effectively, and I hope y'all enjoyed reading it. As I said, it has errors, and that's okay. It is not perfect, and that's okay. The point of this whole assignment is to explore your relationship with literacy, and she had to relearn to read and write, and this is her journey, and I think she just conveys it in a really, really lovely way. So going to my last days in Yemen, I didn't comment on a lot because I figured I was going to wind up repeating myself a lot, but I've been lurking in the discussion boards this week. And so I really get some of y'all's criticism on this piece, but also the praises. So a few things about this that I think are really interesting to point out is, yes, he jumps around in time a lot. But again, this is something that's coming from a traumatic situation. And so when he was writing this, he was really in the grips of PTSD still. And so when that happens, again, when something bad happens to you, like your memories can become disjointed. And one of the things I really like that he points out here is that, that all I have left is an image on a Saturday morning in Yemen, a silent movie that plays on a continuous loop. Like he can't even remember the sounds necessarily. And it's okay to admit that. And like there are certain things he remembers very clearly, like the man was wearing an army green jacket and the hand on his arm. He remembers those things, but he can't remember if he spoke in English or Arabic, or even if he spoke out loud or just in his head that he wasn't going to get in that car. And again, that was okay to point out that he doesn't remember it clearly. So if there's a section in your narrative and you're like, oh my gosh, I really just don't remember if this actually happened or what, it's okay to say that 100%. Please say it. I can't remember if I told y'all or not. I teach 1010. I've got 4 other sections of 1010 and they're blended, half online, half in person. But I have a memory like that. So when my grandmother passed away, at her funeral, my aunt, who was my aunt by marriage, not by blood, did not get along with my grandmother, her mother-in-law, and she wore bright yellow to my grandmother's funeral. And I don't remember saying this, but my mother says I did. And it honestly sounds like 17. I was y'all's age. I was like 17, not quite 18. And I said that she looked like a fat banana and that no self-respecting Southern woman would ever wear that color to a funeral. I don't remember saying it, but apparently I did. And my aunt took offense at it and did not willingly speak to me for the rest of her life. I digress on that, but I was upset. My grandmother had passed away, and I felt like she was disrespecting my grandmother. And apparently, I remember thinking it, and I said it out loud. So, again, when we were going through stressful things, we don't necessarily remember things exactly. I got a lot of comments about how the skipping around was kind of distracting. And so one thing that y'all could do if you're wanting to kind of play around with timeline here is, so you could start in the middle of the memory that you're going to lead up to eventually. But my suggestion for a revision, just to kind of help with the transition, is maybe to use subheadings. So like right here where he's stopping talking about the event that happened, maybe put a subheading here that says like in the beginning, and then move forward from there. And then like further on as he gets back to the event, like he needed the background information. A lot of you said that you felt like it was really bogged down. It could be condensed, and I don't disagree with that, but he's really trying to set the stage here in the background, because again, when you're writing a narrative, you have to assume that your audience knows next to nothing about the subject that you're talking about. So here he's just trying to make sure that you have enough background information to understand why he was almost kidnapped. But then again, you could put in another subheading down the road that kind of lets you know, hey, I'm going back to the event, back to the timeline. And that's a really, really good way to do it. Another good way is making sure that you're mentioning potentially years or months, anything, any little hint that you can kind of give your audience to show, hey, there's a shift in time here. Like, in the beginning this, but now I'm back to this. And that's just one way that you can do that and show just those shifts in time to help your audience understand where you are in the story. But again, subheadings are another really, really great way to do that. A couple of notes on your own papers. Guys, these are your experiences. And so make sure you're not slipping into second person point of view. Like, that tends to happen a lot in narratives. Like, I remember I had a student that was writing about, it was like AR or something like that, and that they could win candy. And it would be like, well, you could win this. I'm like, no, I couldn't do that. That wasn't happening to me. So make sure that you're not having those shifts to second person point of view. Make sure you're keeping it in the first. The I shouldn't see the yous. That's probably the biggest mistake that I see in narratives. And if I do see it in your paper, I'll just point it out, fix it. Not a big deal, but just to point that out there. What I'm going to do for the peer review is I'm going to be dividing you into groups of 3. And you see this little mail here up here. So tonight, Sunday night, Monday morning, whenever you're seeing this, you should see a little orange dot up there. And so it will be your group that you're assigned to for the peer review. So I will be giving instructions in that email. So what I want you to do for this particular peer review is hit reply all with your essay. And that will be due by Wednesday. And then what I want you to do is, again, hit reply all, so that way I can see that you have done the peer review. So basically it's just going to be a little sheet, and you just reply back with your feedback, okay? That needs to be done by Friday. So that way the student that you are peer reviewing will have enough time to make some corrections before the paper is due on Sunday. So if you have any specific questions about that, or aren't exactly sure how to do that, then just let me know. But students usually don't have any issues doing this. But yeah, so just make sure that you were on the lookout for that email. And whenever you do anything, just make sure you were hitting reply all, so that way I can make sure everyone has participated in the peer review. And so actually take that back. It'll be groups of 2, but I think 1, because we're an odd number class, will have groups of 3. And so you only have to peer review 1 person's in there. But that's why I have you do the reply all, so that way we can make sure that both people in that group of 3 have had a full peer review, if that makes sense. So that's what happens when we have odd number classes. There's always just that one group that has to have 3 people. No, you don't have to peer review 2 people. Just in the group of 3, decide amongst yourselves who is going to do, or actually I'll tell you who's going to do who. That will make it a little bit easier for that one group of 3. So I apologize by saying 3. On my face-to-face classes, I have them do 2. I do groups of 3 with 2 peer reviews in my face-to-face classes. So I apologize. I misspoke for y'all. So just be on the lookout for that email. And as again, just make sure you're hitting reply all. If your partner does not review your paper by Friday, shoot me an email. Let me know. I will review it and I will give you feedback on it. All right. That happens every semester. Someone forgets to do the peer review, and I will remind you in the middle of the week. But just know that if your person has not peer reviewed your paper, I will be happy to take a look at it. And 2, if you want me to take a look at your paper before Wednesday, before you turn it into your person, I am going to be more than happy to do that. I will tell you, Monday night, my son has baseball practice, and so it's a little bit of a late night to it, so I probably wouldn't be able to get to it until Tuesday morning, just because at the ball field, I'm usually running around after my toddler and trying to get everybody home, and it's a late night for us. So yeah, but I am more than happy to take a look at your paper before the peer review if you just want to make sure everything is looking correct before another person reviews it. So just remember that does play into your overall grade. So you get 4 points for doing the rough draft, or 5 points for doing the rough draft, 5 points for participating in the peer review. So if you do have any questions, just let me know, and I'm looking forward to another great week.